So I think it's probably best summed up as the sector searching for order. So there was no understood framework, there was no role of a careers leader, so no person in a school responsible for this work. Employers were saying that young people weren't prepared for the workplace but had no mechanism, no framework through which to engage with schools. And schools themselves had no networks to take advantage of that could connect individuals together who could lead this work. And so the provision was, I said, patchy. Good things were happening in places, but that was sporadic, it was ad hoc, it was not joined together in any kind of coherent whole, and it was very fragmented. It depended on individuals in individual schools. So they were the main issues in 2014. The foundation of our work is based on international evidence, so have that evidence, develop that framework that works. Remember, the core thing of that framework is stability, so it's a framework that doesn't change over time, it's constant. It's constant because employers need it to be, schools need it to be, it needs that consistency. Have a person who then leads the implementation of that framework, so have a leader. Imagine they are the conductor of the orchestra, that they bring the component parts together to form that coherent whole, but they don't play every instrument. They just make every instrument work together. And then finally, I think my other thing would be networks. Connect those leaders together so that they can share good practice, that they can look at different challenges and try and tackle them together, and connect them so that they can share and co-develop resources as well. What we saw in that pilot is that no school fully achieved more than 3 of the 8 benchmarks, and in fact 50% of the schools started by achieving no benchmarks at all. Actually, it means that they were doing lots of good things, they just weren't connected together into a coherent whole, and they weren't making a significant impact. So those schools started to do more careers-related things. Then after more activity happening, we started to see greater evaluation, so schools tracking what individual students were involved in and then evaluating the impact of those. And schools then started to publish that programme on their website. The individual who would publish that work on the website would become known as a careers leader. Then we saw real innovation. So schools starting to think differently about careers provision, providing experiences of workplaces rather than just a traditional work experience placement, starting to think about digital encounters with employers or universities. New relationships then started to emerge with business, and so schools could connect with business through what we call an enterprise advisor program, a senior business person matched to a school to work on the careers and employability aspects of school provision. They would support the careers leader in that role. And then we saw those career leaders start to come together in networks. And the power of networks was that once schools were in networks, they were making faster progress towards achieving the benchmarks. We invited government officials to come and visit schools, to see them implementing the benchmarks, to talk to young people and to see the difference the benchmarks were making to teachers and to young people, and eventually to outcomes for those young people. We also encouraged government to talk to employers, and they did, and they could see that employers were excited about a new way of engaging with schools, a much more streamlined way. Schools were very specific in the asks they were now making to employers because they'd understood where they were as a school and where they needed to get to. So that process of auditing against a set of standards, a framework, and then action planning to make improvements allowed the construction of really effective collaboration and partnership working. So for example, we know that for every school that goes on to achieve all 8 benchmarks, there is a likely reduction in the NEET figure, so those young people who go on to not be in education, employment or training when they leave school, that is reduced by 10%. We also know that young people are more motivated when they've followed a program related to the benchmarks, because they're connected to employers and they can see themselves into future roles. The career readiness of young people also improves as they move through a careers program designed using the benchmarks.